Have you ever wanted a secret identity? Well, my guest today has a secret identity purely because he likes Batman a lot. And so his social media handle is Bruce Wayne. And as we get into it in the episode, I seriously thought his name was Bruce Wayne for a long time. And come to find out, I'm not the only one that's done that. But today's guest is Mike Johnston, and we have an absolute blast. This guy is a wonderful husband, father, business owner, and I just can't wait for you to get into it. He shares so many different things that just it impacted me, and I was reliving this episode over and over in my head that just made a lot of sense to me and just made me think differently. And so the biggest thing that I want you to pay attention to when he goes into it is you've got to get your brain on the other side of the pain. Here we go. Y'all have a good one.
I got plenty to give, lady.
I know she's always such a wonderful, pleasant voice. It's like the Waze voice.
Yeah.
To Master Chief.
Yes.
Have you done that one?
Yeah, exactly what you're talking about. My wife and I always make fun of that. It's great.
Yeah. Well, it's good because all of a sudden there'll be like road debris in the way, and it's like, I think it's a trap. Keep your
yeah, exactly. It's like, what the heck?
Like, wait, what?
Pretty funny.
Well, I'm gonna make a complete confession. I thought your name was Bruce Wayne.
Everybody does.
Until Mike Bellini had you on his podcast. Yeah. Wait, his name's not Bruce Wayne?
No, everybody does. So the funny thing is, I bought I sit on the board of this really cool organization. It's called Decatur Makers. It's just this tinkering, a whole bunch of nerds, and we do all this cool stuff. And there's this one guy who just joined the maker space, and he makes these really cool toys. I wish I had one. Really cool toys for kids. It really was for kids like autistic, and you know what I mean. But it grew to just regular kids, just not what's regular, right? But just kids overall would just love it, right? So I said, I want to buy one. He came over to my house. He says, Bruce, nice to meet you. I said, it's not really Bruce, and there's a long story behind that. I'm a big Batman fan, huge. Like, it's been like, oh man, I mean, I was a kid, right? And if you come to my house, I have, where we live, it's not, you can't really build out, so you build up. So we got like 3 stories or whatever. And the 3rd floor is like a Batman Bruce Wayne shrine. Of just like action figures and comic books and so on and so forth. And I was always like, Batman was cool, but Bruce Wayne, the billionaire, right? Like, who doesn't want to be Bruce Wayne? What guy doesn't want to be Bruce Wayne? So that's my that's my alter ego.
So which is your favorite Batman?
What are we talking about? Oh, now we're talking about the movies, the people movies, who played them.
Yeah, actors.
Okay, so I would have to say, I mean, I'm a classic guy. I'd go back to Adam West, right? I mean, I'm sorry, even if the leotards did look kind of crazy, that's what I grew up on. But if I were to pick modern day, people might dislike me for saying this, but I think Ben Affleck did a really great job. It shocked me. And Christian Bale was great, but Christian Bale, you just yelled too much, right? And it was just a bit much. Christian Bale was he was a good Bruce Wayne, but I think Ben Affleck did both better. And he played off being an older Batman, which was really great, which falls under another line of stories that, this particular current day Justice League kind of follows. So, I would say, standing to date, I would say Ben Affleck has done a great job.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Michael Keaton and all. I think that was like play foo. That was like too comic-y. Like, I don't like that. Like, I read really graphic novels. I don't read them as much anymore. I think I've read all of them, but not the current ones. Really graphic. But Batman's a really like messed up dude. You know what I mean? And he doesn't give a what, right? He doesn't kill anybody. Some graphic novels he does, but he doesn't kill anybody. But he just doesn't care. He's very dark, and he's got a lot of inner things he's dealing with. And when Keaton and Val Kilmer and those guys played him, that was the foo. Like, I didn't like that. Really
Oh
good.
yeah, I thought George Clooney was probably the worst.
The worst. By far the worst. The minute George Clooney comes in anything, it's just the franchise is going to, oh, you know what? It's going to
But I'd
poop.
never seen Batman shake his head more than
Yeah, right.
George Clooney.
Exactly. Gosh, I don't even remember that one. It was so bad. I
It
might go
was,
back and look at it. It probably won't last long, but just as a reminder. And when
if I'm not
Arnold,
mistaken, that's the one with Robin.
yeah, is that the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger as Dr. Freeze?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
that was pretty bad. Yeah, no, it was. Yeah,
Just all over it was bad. Made a lot of money, but what are you going to do?
I mean, can't hopefully make new Batman novels. Now, the latest one that came out, the new one with that guy, the kid that played, he was in, what was it, Hunger? He was in some other thing.
Oh yeah, I
He
haven't
was a
seen that
vampire.
one.
He was a vampire guy. He was a vampire kid, right? That was horrible. It's just that's for Gen Z, not for us.
Yeah,
It just was really, really bad. So,
it
yeah,
must have been bad because I didn't hear anything about it. Like nothing.
horrible,
Like it just they're like just
horrible.
let's just put this away and never talk about it again.
Horrible. Now the Batmobile, like there were cool things that they like. I always like how they evolve with like the different iterations of like the equipment and all that stuff. They never go wrong there. I think every single one they've hit it on the head with the equipment, with the tumbler and with Ben Affleck's Batmobile, and the new one being kind of like modern, but kind of like worked on in your garage. They never go wrong with that, but the actors they go wrong with those every now and then. So yeah, so that's it, man. But yeah, so
Awesome.
that's my Bruce Wayne story. I'm a huge Batman fan, and everybody calls me Bruce. And I've been thinking for the longest, like I need to change my IG name, but I was like, I'm so attached to it. So
No, I think it creates really good conversation.
it does. It does.
And then
'Cause
you'll know who really knows you and who's just
listen, here's how the
blah.
conversation goes. Bruce Wayne, wow, man, you must get a lot of you love Batman. I go, that's not really my name. My name is really Mike Johnston. Oh, Mike Johnston, the track star. So you really, really like it just never ends, man. So it's an ongoing, conversation starter, no matter how I introduce myself. It's great.
Yeah.
So
Well, you are a unique individual, so that's what I want to dig in today. But before we get started, one, I love that first conversation. I like to do would you rathers.
yeah,
All right. So the first one is would you rather freeze time or travel back in time?
travel back in time.
Why?
Because there's a lot of things that I know now that I need to tell the back in time me that I need to slap him around a couple of times and go, don't do it that way. Yeah, that's what I would do. Go back in time.
Perfect. And then we'll remember that statement when we start to dig in more
Oh,
to
I
your
feel like
pathways.
there's a setup. There's a setup. No kidding.
So live without music or TV?
Oh, TV. I'll live without TV all day.
Okay. This one's specific for you. Would you rather cold plunge or sauna?
I can't. I got a bias right now, so I can't. I haven't been sauning a lot, so I'm gonna pick the plunge for right now.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
And then last one for fun is would you rather have pizza or tacos?
Neither. Gross. I'm a carnivore. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
No, I can't answer that. No way.
At least with tacos, you could have corn, right? Do you even eat corn?
God
You're
damn
just
it,
meat.
man. Yeah. Yeah.
How's that going? Because I know Joe Rogan did it for a while.
I've been doing it. I've been doing it for probably about 8 months, 9 months. And I actually I feel good. I feel good. There's some things that I've noticed that are different. 100%. 100%. I'm not a big guy. I've never been but I definitely notice a difference in my physique. The fact that I have not like worked out at all, like really, you know what I mean? Like nothing like I used to do. And
So
my
you're kind of
physique,
leaning out.
it's more muscular. You know what I mean? I've never
Okay.
been like big, so I've always been lean, so I'm bulking a little bit, and it doesn't look like it. It really doesn't. But for me, I can tell. You know what I mean? Like my body looks like I'm like, wow, that's crazy. The fact that you haven't done anything and you're still maintaining that, or it's growing. So that's the benefit that I see. I'm gonna give myself a year, and then I'm gonna, they always say, do your blood work every 4 months. I'm gonna give myself a full year and then just go get the blood and see what it does. I know what's gonna happen, but as long as it's not like really, really bad, we'll be all right.
Are you gonna report back either way?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can tell you already. I mean, because I've never had like, this is like geek talk. I've never had like over like beer and cholesterol ever. Like I don't suffer from any of that stuff at all. But it's gonna probably be up just because I'm eating a high fat diet. You know what I mean? 100%. You know. But now I'm starting to learn. Like I'm starting to look down the rabbit hole a little bit more, going, that's not necessarily bad for you at the end of the day.
Yeah, because
So yeah,
there's good cholesterol, bad cholesterol, and then if you're not eating any sugar, that's a huge success right there.
100%. You know what I mean? I am balancing with some sugar though. What I mean by that is just fruit. I'll hit bananas, oranges, apples. Like I'll kill the regular stuff and honey. I'm a big honey kind of person. But I'm not doing like, if it comes in a box, I'm messing with it. Like I haven't for like a minute. And my wife always says it's so hard, because we always got to plan around. I was like, it's not that hard. Just put a slab of meat on my plate and I'm good. You know what I mean? It's not, you have to prepare. You just grill it. Bam! I got one of those Ninja Foodies. Grill it, and on my plate, and I'm done. I'm good to go. How easy is that?
Yeah, no, it's super easy. It's like the Ninja's the new George Foreman grill.
100%. Like I got that by mistake. It was not by mistake, but she bought it for me for Christmas. I opened it by mistake, so I've had it for 2 months. I was like, what have I been missing? Why have I been outside grilling all this time? And I could do this right here.
Yeah,
Smartly, like you plug the needle in and it tells like it makes the perfect steak.
every
So
time.
every time. So my whole thing is for my wife and everybody else, it's easy. Like, what are we gonna have for dinner tonight? Well, dad knows what he's having, dad's out the way. So, so there we'll report back when I get that.
What? So I'm intrigued now. What made you want to go that way 8 months ago?
So like honestly, I suffer from, like, it may not look like it, but there are a couple things that I kind of over the past few years that I've noticed uh that's been happening to me for a couple different reasons. I was working out way too much. I was running like these absurd things. I was messing with Jesse and Mark Brown and those guys. And I still do, but in moderation. But I started noticing, like, after like doing all those things, I wasn't like replenishing and nourishing my body properly, and I was eating the wrong things. And I'd have like things like, I'd be sitting there, I'd have like palpitations where it's like a skip, right? Like it's a heart skip, like what was that? And it would happen a lot. And I would notice, like, when I would take certain things or do certain things, it would happen. And when I would remedy it, like, if I'd take electrolytes, the minute I take electrolytes, within like 15 minutes, those things are gone. And, certain things like that would happen. And then I noticed like my skin was really bad, which I'm still working on, but it's like I've noticed some improvements with it. A lot of for me, I'm super like OCD, man, and I get super like wound up. Really, really, when I say wound up, not in a bad way, but like I got to keep going. Um, I think between the cold, the meat, and the salt, like I've come down like a lot. Somebody told me the other day recently. I took my daughter with me to this work meeting that I was having, and I was explaining something to her. And somebody that was at that office at the time stopped by and said, I don't mean anything by it, but I just want to say, like, I've been noticing you guys, and it's amazing how patient you are with your daughter, right? Because, I mean, they're in an environment, she wants to run around, and I'm cool with it. I just deal with it a little bit differently. I think a couple months ago, or yeah, a year ago, I'd have been more on edge. Sit down, no, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know if it's attributed to that, um, or just the discipline of. I mean, I just eat meat. That's a discipline by itself. I got to get in this cold water. That's a discipline by itself. So I don't know if it's the actual or if it's the discipline of that's helped me kind of like sit in a better seat of just comfort and just calm. You know what I mean? And not get caught up in the mishmash of BS. So yeah, so that's what I've noticed about it. Is it gonna make me live any longer? I don't know. I mean, hopefully I want to live long. Um, is it going to keep me vibrant? Listen, we all want to be like, I have a lot of my friends that, you only have a certain amount of summers left or this, that, and the other. That's great. But I'm gonna live each one of those summers or each one of those years like I'm living now. Like I keep up with my 3-year-old son like it's nobody's business. You know what I mean? And I love that. And I want to keep that vibrance, within myself. So if eating meat every day and if that's the answer, cool. If not, I'll just pivot and fix it and see what happens next. But right now it's working for me though. I actually do enjoy it, and it's great to find out all the benefits of it, that you've been not necessarily paying attention to. People tell you one thing, but it's really, they're doing the okey doke on you, right?
Yeah.
So it's like the lies that we've been fed, so I'm just trying to see, like, if a doctor and everybody else told me, do this, like eat your vegetables too, and I still feel like crap, then I'm gonna do the opposite, right? I would do exactly the opposite of what you're telling me to see how that works out. And if it works out great, I'll keep doing it. So, and that's my whole method. That's like the method to my madness. So
It's the Costanza effect.
that's it. That's how it works. Exactly. I couldn't put it any better. That's exactly what
Just
it is.
the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you teed us up brilliantly for the conversation. So as we were talking about earlier, is the name of this podcast is Pathways to Greatness, because in my mind, what I've seen is there's so many different paths for people to accomplish things that they want to accomplish. And then everybody has a different definition of greatness. So just to reintroduce yourself to the listeners, and a lot of my circle probably know who you are because we run a lot in the same circle, follow a lot of the same people, which is great. But I want to go a little more in depth. So you're Mike Johnston. You have Ground Rush is your company that you have.
Uh-huh.
You're a husband, a father, a friend, a business owner, a carnivore. And when we look at all that, that's you in a description. How would you define greatness?
I mean, that's and talk about springing something on you. For me, being great is, lately for me, being great has been just being a person there for my kids, trying to be a better listener for my wife, trying to listen, period. You know what I mean? And then take all of that and, just kind of spread it to the world. I don't know. It's a weird question because I don't ever really think about I don't ever think about it like that. Like I never think about like what's greatness. Like I don't know, I guess, yeah. I mean, Jesse Itzler is great. Mark Brown is greatness in their own right. My greatness for me is just doing all those things, just being a good human, man. Just trying to understand how to be a good human, and understand that in life, we just gotta go through certain things to experience life to be great, like being open to life. Lately, that's been my whole thing. I'm going through this like really interesting, spiritual portion of life that never existed for me prior to 40 years old. And now you start thinking to yourself, like, greatness for me isn't how much money you have in the bank. Greatness for me isn't how big you build an empire. You know what I mean? I think the greatness is in between that. I think those things that happen, if that's what your greatness is, are just byproducts of that in between, of the perseverance, of the listening, of the being a good human, of the serving, feeding people, serving people, whatever it is. I think that's what greatness is for me, and I take all of that, all those things that I've done, the listening, the feeling of life, the fearing of life, the not, and understanding the fearing is just a feeling. And, I always, lately I've been taking so much and learning so much lessons from being in the cold. I take all the fears and all the anxieties and all the everythings of life, and you step into the cold water. And, after everything that you felt, I think the greatness of it is the fact that you could just overcome these things and just step into that and sit there and feel that and feel life. um, is how I define it lately, is just being great and how things are great for me, you know.
Sounds like a lot of
Um,
gratitude.
yeah, there's a lot of that going on. I mean, I look around, man, and I gotta give gratitude to what I have, and and how people want to offer themselves to me, whether it's to be a listener, or for my, like I said, for my kids wanting me to play superheroes with them, or whatever. I'm grateful for all that. Who doesn't want that, right? So yeah, that's how I would define it in a nutshell. It's kind
That
of like a zigzaggy kind of way to say it, but
well, no, but it's
it's a hard
zigzaggy.
question.
Well, it's a hard question because to me, it's there's no defined answer. There's just nothing, because everybody's going to answer that differently.
Yeah.
I had one gentleman that I interviewed yesterday. It was living life well lived. And,
Yeah.
that again, it's similar to what you said, but it's different. And and that's what I want to encourage people to think, is to define it for yourself, because I feel like we do too many comparisons. You dropped a couple of names of some people that a lot of people compare themselves to. Like, I wish I was Jesse. I wish I was Mark. I wish I was
Yeah,
Mike.
I would never wish I was any of those. No way. No way. No, I mean,
But people only wish because of the status of the different things, but they don't know what it took for them to get there. And I think Jesse does a good job explaining some of that, but until you've lived it, you don't know what he actually endured to get to where he's at. And he's continuing to redefine what greatness is to him, from what I can tell.
yeah. He, it's funny and it is because, and like I said, greatness, especially for us as people, like, we know each other. It's definitely different for him than me. I remember one time we were going on this run, man, and he, for some reason, tried to convince me that I need to do like 100-mile race, right? And I was just like, Jesse, I'll go to the moon with y'all, I'll do whatever, but there's just certain things that I just don't have any interest in. Like, that's not greatness for me. You know what I mean? And you can see in his eyes, like, that's the achievement for him. And he respected it. I'm not saying he's forcing me.
Right.
I think he was trying to encourage me because he knew I could do it, and two, they were all getting ready to do one, or somebody was getting ready to do one. So why not include everybody? And I said, I'll do a marathon all day. I might even do like a light ultra, but there's nothing in my mind, right? And there's nowhere that I need to be, or nothing that I need to find on 100-mile run. You know what I mean? Like, it's just call me. I mean, I don't know if we call me a wuss, call me a coward. It's none of that. It's like, I physically know I could do it, but it's like, why? Like, I am not personally. I know myself. I'm not going to gain anything from that other than being pissed off that I can get to sleep, right? And somebody, oh yeah, but you learned a lot about yourself. Yeah, but that's something that I've already known about myself. If I don't get sleep, I'm a crabby person. I don't need to do it to find out, right? So, and by me doing it, it's not going to make me any more calmer, right? So, so there's certain things for people that are great, and for me, I may look at it and go, and that it's nothing. No, it's not a disrespectful thing. It's just not great to me. Like, that's, I mean, because a lot of things that I do that, believe me, there's a lot of things that I do that both those dudes and a lot of our other friends, they tune out. Oh, sorry, they tune out the minute I bring it up, right? Like, I'll start talking code or whatever. It's like deer in the headlights, But I love stuff like that. That's being great to me, like doing what you love. So,
well, and I want people to hear what you had to say, was that it's different. It's different for everybody.
Yes.
And I can hear it, and I see, for the people that can't see it, is that I can see it on your face. It's not a matter of fear, afraid of doing 100 miles. It's like, I just, no. Like my wife, she's like, no, no, you go ahead and you find yourself.
Yeah.
That's cool. But, and for her, it just wouldn't accomplish what she would want it to accomplish if she was going to try. And I feel, going back to the comparison thing, is people, read Jesse's book, Living with the Seal. They've read Goggins's book. They've seen, Chad Wright do these crazy things, and they feel like in order to find that spot, they need to do that. when it may be like something some people are afraid of is to go sit in silence for 2 hours outside.
Which I will say, by the way, that is extremely, extremely hard. That's harder than sitting in cold, hot, running 100 miles. Sit with your thoughts for 2 hours. I dare you. It is the hardest thing you could ever do. Try it.
And I don't know about you, and I'd love to find out, is for the longest time, I could not be in a quiet house. Like there's just no way. I had to have some kind of background noise because I was terrified of having to deal with the thoughts that were going through my head.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned how to, just once again, those spiritual shifts that you go through. I went through this big like shift as far as like the thoughts and the self-talk was just controlling, everything, like you were saying, like being quiet and being still. So I found myself going, to the Shambhala temple to learn how to like sit and meditate with some of these, monks, if you would. I remember I attended this one session. It was a 4-hour session, right? It took me 30 minutes. I was like, there's no way. I had to leave. It was just like, I cannot do this. This is another 3.5 hours. There's no possible way. I literally got up and left. And I mean, I think the longest I've been able to do it has been probably, I don't know, probably an hour. But it's hard, man. Sit alone with yourself for 2 hours. It's nothing can compare to that. It's hard. Self-talk is a mother, boy, I tell you. And that'll obstruct you from getting to greatness. I guarantee you that if you start listening to it, all that stuff. I mean, if you ever get a chance, there's a great book by his last name is Singer, Michael Singer, I think it is. It's called The Untethered Soul.
Oh, I've heard of that. You're like the third or fourth person in the past month or so.
It's an amazing book. I swear it's an amazing book. And one of the things that I love about that book is how it starts off. And I'm not giving anything away. It's mostly some of the things that we're talking about. He starts off the book with talking about how you ever notice that when you're like in the car by yourself, right? You'll have these thoughts, right? And that thought will have a question. And then something else will answer the question. So then you're in the car, driving the car while having a two-way conversation with yourself. Right. And I don't know if most of you do that, but you end up, because I always do that all the time. Like I could pick up the laundry. Then I answer myself, I can't go pick up the laundry because blah, 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 blah. Like it's just the chatter becomes so much, you know what I mean? And being able to just bring it down to a baseline and learning how to do that. I mean, I think over time for me, that's been invaluable, because if most people can't tell, I have a very up personality. It's like that from the minute I wake up in the morning till when I go to bed. So there's a lot going on, and to be able to learn how to do that, and bring it down took a lot of work, but it definitely was something that I had to learn in order to be great.
Yeah, well, that's your 100-miler. Again,
Yeah.
you've got to, again, when we talk to people, and the people that are listening, is that you've got to do the work to find what that it is. Yeah. What is it that's going to help you come to grips with what you need to do and how to be better? So one of the things you said early on when we asked you would you rather freeze time or travel back in time, you said travel back in time, and specifically to tell the old you some things to do differently. Yeah. So the first question would be is, as much as you would like, I would love for you to share what would be one or two of those things that you would tell yourself to do differently.
I think one of the things that has haunted me for a while is I fathered children at a young age, right? Two kids at a young age. I was 19 when I had my firstborn, and like 21 after for my second. And then now I have two more kids, right? And obviously raising them is a lot different than what I did when I raised my first two. And I'm starting to feel the repercussions of that, meaning at that time in my life, I was very focused on my form of being great was success, money, this, that. We got time for relationships and all that stuff later on, not realizing that the first 7 years of a child's life is basically going to dictate who they are, right? And I wasn't there for the first 7 years, right? Or very minimally, you could say. So I would go back in time and slap the crap out of myself and say, this is important for family. This is important for your lineage. There's a lot of things that I'm starting to realize, and I'm starting to kind of like piece the puzzles on. Like, I mean, you're talking about go back in time. I wouldn't even go back in time to just me. I'd go back in time to my dad, right? And because there's things that I've noticed that has generationally happened. Like, I'm talking about like things that'll freak you out to the point where like my father so my father's situation was very similar to mine, right? Like he had kids before and then kids with my mom. And like I'll give you an example. He had a he had a daughter, right? That he didn't really have a relationship with until she was 16, my sister, right? One of my sisters. Um, fast forward to me. I have a daughter that I didn't really have a relationship with until she was 16. I'm not telling you any lies. This is creepy stuff. Fast forward to my son. He has a daughter who's now 8. He doesn't have a relationship with her, right? If that's not generational, right?
Mm.
And now I'm actually starting to see, like, now I'm interjecting with my boy, my son, saying, listen, we can't let this happen. You know what I'm saying? We got to interject now so we can break this curse, call it what you want, right? So I'd go back in time and kind of, rectify that. I'll tell you one thing that I'm lucky on, man, is when I met my wife, she kind of taught me just the importance of family. So, that's another thing. Well, I always knew the importance. I'm not saying I grew up in but the importance of family, like really tightly knit. Like my wife's family is the first family I ever been around, right? That, like, I never forget when we've been together for a long time. I never forget when I first did my first marathon. The entire family sent me emails or gave me a call. The entire family, like second cousins, third friends, best friends, like called, right? Very tightly knit. My mom was like, "What's a marathon again?" You know what I mean? But it's just, nothing against that. It's just, I'm just saying. So my whole thing is going back in time and kind of like bringing that back to the forefront. As far as like something that's really important, something that we're missing as a country today, I would say. Like,
100%.
I would definitely do that for sure.
Yeah, and I can relate to this extent where my dad, he grew up with a dad that was very company oriented. He had owned his own business or ran his father-in-law's business, but spent a lot of time there. And then my dad didn't want to recreate that, but then ended up having his own business and that he worked all the time. So I knew my dad loved me. He was my hero, but he worked all the time. By the time I was gone for school, he was getting up later. And then by the time he was coming home, I was going to bed. So we just never really had a relationship. And I found myself in my career, once I had my kids, I was doing the same thing, but I was saying that I wasn't doing the same thing. And even if I was home, my brain wasn't focused on my family that's sitting in front of me. It was work, email, keeping up with people from, a company. And I'm like, well, like they come and go. I mean, you leave a company, probably within 3 months, you won't hear from anybody
At all.
And these were people that you were tight with for a long time. Once you're out of sight, you are out of mind. The only people that will be there is that family unit around you.
100%.
We treat them the worst.
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's weird how that works, huh?
Yeah.
I learned how to do that the opposite, though, because of my wife. We're starting to learn how to. It's a process, man. I mean, I've been programmed to think and feel a certain way. So
Well, the great lesson there is that we don't have to stay on the same path that we think we're destined to be on.
No.
And I feel like so many people use the excuse, and I was programmed this way, it's just the way you are. It's just the way Forrester men are. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want to be a Forrester man if that's
Yeah.
if that's what I'm destined to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like that people's fear, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, other people's fear is what's projecting that statement to you. It's like, that's just the way you are, because it's going to be really hard to do anything different.
So it's so fun. I laughed when you said that because it took me back to a time I'll never forget. I went to I was doing a physical one time with the doctor, and I asked him, I said, listen, I got like, man, like my hands get really cold at times and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like asking him about these ailments I was having during running and all that stuff. And he goes, it's just, well, that's how you're built. That's just how you are. No, like, needless to say, I don't go back to that. I didn't go back to that guy. But I think if you let that fear get projected onto you, right? That fear will manifest itself in your own substance. Like whatever it is that you're fearing is going to come to life, right? Like it's inevitable. You know, you get scared, you think the boogeyman's gonna come the minute you hear something bounce or move, like that's the fear, like that's what you're manifesting, right? There's no boogeyman, but you're manifesting something to think like that, right? And I feel for me half the time, that getting past that fear, and not letting anything manifest itself from that fear, which is practice. There's a lot of practice that comes with that. Like this ain't I still haven't figured it out, you know, and I'm working on it just like everybody else is. But I feel like when you let yourself get wrapped in it, that's when you become it, right? There's the master key system. Ever heard of that?
I haven't.
You need to look it up. I forgot who's the author. It's a very old book. But it talks about like there's this materialistic thing in the universe, and it's this thinking thing, and it's really weird how it starts off, right? Like there's this thing, like I think of it as putty, and whatever you think comes to life, and it pretty much breaks down the disciplines of just being disciplined, and what you think really does come to fruition, and how you feel, no matter what the fear is. Right? You got to get through the fear. Like if you let the fear hold on to you, whatever it is that you're trying to do, I mean, you're going to lose, you know, it ain't real. It's a ghost at the end of the day. You know, it's how I feel. It's really not real.
I know you said you don't have it figured out, but what are some of the tactics that you've already started to use to get past that?
The first thing that I'm starting to really work on is, honestly, not to think, not to give any thought to anything, right? Like just execute, right? I've got to remind myself in whatever I'm doing, right? And I'm the expert at it. I know, we've done this before. Like what's the thought of it? What are we scared of? It's just like, I mean, I would flip it to you and say, you're starting this podcast right now, right? There was some fear that you had. I'm pretty sure at one point, you may not call it fear. You mean, I didn't feel like doing it. There's some fear there because, I'm going to suck. You know what I mean? But then you finally decided to do it. Whatever it is, the best way to describe it to you is whatever it is that made you decide to do it. That's what I practice all the time. I don't think about it anymore. It's just textbook stuff, like just do. You know what I mean? I've learned that by doing that, it takes probably about 80% of the weight off. Now there's still 20% that's like, dear Lord Jesus, please, like, you know what I mean? Jesus, take the wheel type thing. But, you just can't, like, there's no room to really, because the minute, you resist, everything that you're feeling from is going to persist. Arthur Ashe used to say this, right? The more you resist, the more it persists, right? So the more you resist it, and listen, man, I can't tell you how much, like, and I know you've seen it, everybody's tired of seeing it. I actually picked it up from Jesse. I mean, Jesse Isser was the first dude that I saw, like, what the hell is this dude with some cold stuff in his house? You know what I mean? I was gonna curse. I didn't know if this is a family show, so I decided not to. But I said, what's this cold stuff in this dude's house? And then I remember stepping into it for the first time, lasted 5 seconds. I wasn't one of those dudes that sat in there and was like, this is cool. I was like, this sucks. Like, who would want to do this, right? But the more I researched it, so he was the in, right? The more I researched it, I started learning, like, there's a lot that you learn from it. So I say that to loop back around to the whole fear thing. I can't tell you how many of my friends now really come over to my house just to do that plunge, right? And there's a lot of footage on IG and everywhere else that I don't post, because the build up to them actually, what you've seen that I've put, and there's a whole bunch of people that have come, I haven't even posted because they didn't even last, right? But to see the fear on their face, right? I remember one point my sister-in-law came. This is so funny how life holds you back, right? And fear is there, obviously, it's a defense mechanism. It's there to protect you at the end of the day, because the reptilian is saying, nah, we're here to protect you. You ain't doing that, right? You gotta figure out where the override switch is. Like, yeah, we're doing it anyway. My sister-in-law was gonna get in the cold plunge, and she took her left foot and put it in. Right before she touched the cold water, her foot stopped. And no matter how much she tried to push her foot in, it would not go, right? Like, her brain is saying, we're going in. Her body's saying, not today, right? It was the most amazing thing of this. And then finally she got in. But it's just like, and then when you get in, like, you literally learn about yourself, right? Like, and then when you get out, you go, what was I scared of? And I'll do that again, right? But here's the funny part is, here's how life is, right? But when you come back, and this is the honest truth for me, you may think I think that that's enjoyable. I personally hate doing that every morning, right? I hate the initial of that. It's everything, like all these hard things that you do, there's greatness on the other side of it. So my brain is already on the other side, right? So that's why there's no thinking, because I mean, which I don't know if it's a good thing or not, because I may not necessarily be living in the moment. But when I get into that tub, it's just a matter of, like, there's no thinking. Just get in. You'll be fine in 5 minutes. And it normally is good in 5 minutes. So I've learned a lot from it. I've learned so much. I've never learned so much from a $147 tub that I got from Lowe's.
I love just the visual that your brain goes to the other side.
Yep.
Most people, they get stopped and they don't think of the other side. I follow a couple of guys that are fitness coaches, and they always talk about, when did you ever go to the gym and after you went to the gym, wish that you would have not gone to the gym? Yeah. He's like, probably never, unless you got injured or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But we fight our the things that we know are going to benefit us, because I think we think of the front side and not the other side. So I want people to think of that and hear that, as I wrote it down, is that your brain is on the other side of the pain.
All the time. But pain is needed, though. Like, everything, life is a balance. And there's another thing that I'm starting to learn, like, it's all the stuff that you've heard that you're like, that's foo-foo stuff when you're a kid, that you're like, I mean, it's kind of the truth, right? But it is a balance. Like, I don't care who you are. If you're at some point in your life, if you've got all this pleasure, like, things are great, there's going to be a balance where you have to come back to baseline. And in order to come back to baseline, it's not only going to just be like, things are not great and then I'm back to baseline. It's going to be like, things are not great. Holy smoke, things are really not great. You know what I mean? There's the pain and pleasure principle is very, very true to a degree, right? That guy, what's his name? Andrew Huberman, he talked about that recently as far as the dopamine effect, right? You do all these things that are super, super pleasurable. Think about the addict, right? That, the alcoholic that's drinking and he loves drinking and he stops, right? The minute he stops, he's going to he's going to crash, right? So that dopamine level is going to just go whoop through the floor, right? In order for it to come back to baseline, and level out, right? He's got to stop. He's got to experience the pain of it. And then when he experiences the pain of it, it rewards him, right? It gives you that dopamine, but it brings you back to a certain baseline where you can maintain. That's all I think about. Like, that's my whole thing. Like, so now I'm starting to, this is going to say, it's not crazy, it's not sadistic. I'm starting to enjoy the pain of it because you know what's coming next. If that makes any sense. It only hurts for a little bit, and that's just life. It'll hurt for a little bit.
Yeah, and we think that it's going to last forever, but it's never lasted forever. And you said it so well, is that you have baseline and you think about how life we get, because it's the physiological responses. You talked about being a carnivore, is the first couple of weeks was probably tough because your body was finding a new baseline because it was getting rid of all the other things that it had been using to have those dopamine hits, the sugar, the whatever else that you were eating. People that are habitually late and like to work under pressure, I'm convinced they work under pressure because they're used to that fight or flight dopamine release that they get, because if they just did a little bit every day and they got it done, it doesn't feel very good.
100%. And the person, I can tell you what, the person who you're talking about that loves that workaholic type of under stress type of thing, they'll sit there and tell you they don't like it, and that's not the truth. Their body is in a form of homeostasis in that phase that they're in. Anything outside of that phase, tell them to sit down and relax. They'll look more uncomfortable than they did when they're working under pressure.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Like, and my mom doesn't, she's not a procrastinator, but you just ask her, Mom, just sit on the couch and let's just hang out. You can just, oh my goodness, you can just see, she'll sit there and read her prevention magazine for a little bit, and next thing you know, she's up and like, can I fold some clothes? Can I wash some clothes? Yeah. It's like, I'm grateful, but at the same time, it's that, like you said earlier, everybody's 100-mile race is different, and everybody has something that they have to accomplish and overcome to find. And that's the pathway. We have different pathways to get to where you want to go.
More than one way to skin a cat, I've always said. Said it. And I think that people need to understand that. And I don't mean this anyway against any of the people that normally go out there and try to motivate. But what I would say to the audience is, I think they're just showing you what their path is, and that it's possible, that there is a path. There's a whole bunch of different paths. I don't necessarily think your path is doing what I do, or what you do, or what Mark does, or what Jesse does, or what whoever does. It may not be that person's path, but maybe it's just like, you just got to understand, like, there's certain principles, certain laws, right? The law of gravity exists for all of us, right? And there's ways that you can defy those laws of gravity. You go to space or get, you know what I mean? And it works the same for all of us. The rules are the same, just how you apply those rules for you is what I feel works, right? So the law of, fear does exist. We know that, right? And it's something that, every single human being has probably experienced. Now, how you deal with the fear, right? I can show you a path to how I deal with my fear. You could, and then people can try that out and kind of, maybe your way, a quarter of your way and a fifth of my way works for them, and that's how you put it together. But I think the goal to being great is, yes, finding your path, and there's nothing wrong with seeing how other people use different recipes for their greatness. But I feel like, the basics of it, there's some basics to life that we should all look at, analyze, and figure out how we can, navigate around it to get where we need to go.
For sure. You said it earlier, which I loved, is that you don't just take everybody's word for it. You'll try it. If it doesn't work, I'm going to do something different. And I feel that too many people don't do the second part. Like, well, I tried it. Mike told me to do it this way and it just didn't work. So clearly I'm not capable. And it's like you said, is no, you just need to try enough different things to create your own recipe for greatness, because it's in everybody and it looks different in everybody. But
and the crazy part is when you quit. I don't know if you read that book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill.
Mm-hmm.
So remember the part where he was talking about the guy that was 3 feet away from the gold, right? It's kind of like that. Like if you don't go the second route, like you tried, it didn't work, you gave up. Maybe if you tried again, but tried it differently, maybe you'll strike gold the second time. You know what I mean? Maybe the way that you tried it, maybe you're just 3 feet away from, that greatness or that whatever to get where you're going. Like you just got to keep the grind going. Man. That's
Yeah,
really what
yeah.
it is. You just got to keep the grind going. I mean, I can't say it any other way.
Well, and the
You
other
know,
thing is like you've surrounded yourself with some great people. It's also enlisting help and enlisting other people to show you different ways and say, just like you were saying, is that you might not be able just to have the capacity, like, look, I'm done. I'm tapped out. I can't dig another 3 feet. Can you help me?
yeah.
And you now have a friend that's like, yeah, man, I'm ready to go, because they may swing that pick a little different, that takes a different angle, which is all you needed.
But that's still not giving up, though. That's still
No,
not giving up, right?
correct.
I mean, even though somebody else guides you, I mean, that's different than just saying, you know what, screw it, I'm done. Like this ain't working for me. You
Yep.
know what I mean? And I think that's where people fall short sometimes. I mean, I've done it tons and tons of times, man, where I've left great successes on the field. I'm guaranteeing you, I've left greatness on the field just because I just like, I'm done. And then I turn around and go, should have, would have, could have, but it is what it is. So you learn from that, and you learn not to do it again. As the gentleman in the book, he learned not to do that again when he started selling life insurance, right? So, so I think that's something that's really important when you're dealing with all these kind of like adversaries to achieving your greatness. Ain't nobody like, and the way I look at it this way is like life is just not going to give it to you. We live in that world too, right? Instant gratification. I want to be great. Hold on, it's not happening. Well, you got to change your mindset. I've been thinking about it a lot. Well, you haven't been doing anything, right? So, I mean, you just have to, you got to keep at the grind, man. And that's the fun part. I never really. It wasn't until like within my 40s, and I wasn't saying at 40. At some point in my 40s, I started understanding the phrase "enjoy the process."
Mm-hmm.
Right? I never knew what that meant. Never, ever did I know until now. I know what it means, on several different accords, when it comes to achieving your greatness, enjoying the process, because none of us ever enjoy that because we are always thinking about the end result, right? What happens at the end? I mean, shit, what's the point of what did you enjoy? Like, you just want to get to the end. Like, what's the point? Then what? Right? What about the in between? Like, that enjoying the process is like the dash of our life. We're born and we die. The dash is the process you need to enjoy.
Yeah, I've heard that phrase, live the dash.
Yeah. Enjoy that process of life. So many people, and nothing against people. I mean, I understand that there's a lot of mental health issues in this world, man. Seriously, I see a lot of it. I'm speaking from a different standpoint, though. Like, so many people, it's sad to see so many people try to take themselves out of this world. I'm doing everything to stay in this world. You know what I mean? Because I feel like it's so great. Like, this is a great life that we have, no matter what it is. And, somebody could say, oh, yeah, you're doing that because you're here in life and you're here in life. Bro, I didn't come from anything big. You know what I mean? I grew up on a small island, 13 miles long, 7 miles wide. We didn't have a lot. My first introduction to central air was when I came to the mainland. We didn't have any of that stuff back home. So, so it's just, but that's all humble beginnings and where you come from, and you enjoy all of that. I mean, I've had some crashes and I've enjoyed all of it. Wouldn't change a thing. I'd tell myself something different though if I went back in time, like how to correct certain things. But as far as changing anything, like I wouldn't say like, I wouldn't have had kid. No, I'll keep it all the same. You just enjoy that process of it.
Right. Just change it up. And I think that would be probably the message that you would hear more, is enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Because I know mine would be, don't be so afraid of everything
At all.
and embrace the difficult things. Like you said, is get your brain on the other side, because that's where things are good.
What are you scared of right now? that you shouldn't be?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think for me is where I'm at is not providing for my family because I made a big career change. I was laid off in 2021 and dove into being I guess, self-employed, so to speak, and just seeing what the year didn't provide financially. But I was talking to Mike Bellini, a friend of ours. He snapped me out of it. He's like, well, you're not the one that provides anyways. It comes from God. I was like, well, thank you, Mike. That's
He shut it down.
Yep. That was pretty much all I needed to hear. So that changed my perspective. My wife has been great because she's like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? We're not going to end up homeless. So that's positive. But my brain goes to the immediate bad.
It's funny how that happens, though. Why do you think that happens? Why do you think that we've been programmed when we think, especially as men, I think, right? That whole providing with the family thing. I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel like that, but I think that's a common thing. I mean, I've felt like that in my life at some point. But why do we always go to the negative?
I think you were talking about genetics. I think some of it's nurtured.
Yeah.
I think you hear a lot of that over and over. And for whatever reason, I'm just genetically, so it's like I have to make a mental decision to not go negative immediately. So I had a dry spot on my ear and it had kind of changed colors a little bit. Within a split second of seeing it in the mirror, I'm thinking they're going to have to take half my ear off.
I love you. I'm the same person.
It's like, I was like, I mean, within a split second, my wife's like, you are insane.
I think our wives are the same people too.
But it's crazy because what happened was before with anxiety, I allowed myself to sit in that and then ruminate on all the negative. Where now I realize that, is there real danger in what you're afraid of? And if the answer is no, then say, okay, let's break it down. Like you said, let's just break this down to see, what is it that I'm really afraid of? Is it just taking a step? Is it failure? Is it what somebody else might think of me? It's all that stuff's just made up garbage, that it's all lies that we tell ourselves. Because one, I'm not that important that many people care.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that I've told myself is like, look, get over it. You're not that important.
Yeah.
And that's a hard pill to swallow as well. And so to answer your question, it's the fear, and some of it's got to be ego of just not being the guy to provide.
That great thing that needs to die, right? The ego. Yeah. It needs to. We need to just, it's one thing I could just kill off. That would be the one thing.
Oh, for sure.
How do you? So now that 2020 is over, and all this stuff is gone, we're now into 2023 darn near. You're not homeless, obviously. You're doing all right. So is there still a reason for fear? Is there still a reason to be negative?
No. And to the point that you said earlier is making sure that I'm just not sitting back and waiting to be great. But then I also have to realize that I'm also trying to do too much, that I'm just trying to plug too many holes. And I was on a mastermind call, and he talked about setting intentionality for the year and really just sitting in it and finding your word. John Gordon's talked about it. All these guys, they've talked about finding your word. And I just had a picture in my head when I was thinking of 2022 and 2023. It goes back to the way our parents were probably taught how to swim. You just get thrown into the river and you just swim. I mean, figure it out or drown. And I started thinking in my 2022 it was like I got thrown into this river that I thought I knew how to swim, and I'm fighting and I'm kicking and I'm flailing just to try to keep my head above the water. And I started to think about 2023, and if I would really have believed in 2022, I told myself I did, but I clearly did not. I would have just held my breath, kicked my feet back and relaxed, and I would have been able to float down the river and been able to see obstacles coming my way and shift without as much effort and getting exhausted. Because by the end of 2022, I was just exhausted from kicking and flailing when I didn't need to, because I had enough stuff that I knew how to do, that if I would have just relaxed and gone with the flow and put forth effort and not too much effort, that it would have been a more successful year.
My father-in-law always used to say he was a genius CEO. He ran Carter's, Oshkosh, and all that stuff for a long time. He always used to say that what you're good at needs your attention the most. Right? And then he'd always follow it up, to me especially. He'd always say entrepreneurs always get bored with their core, and that's why they fail. Right? And it's not a business class, but I'm just saying if you treat life that way, and you're really good at something, and you're jumping from here to here. And I've been practicing this because I do the same thing. And I want to do this, I want to do this, and it takes so much on, and then it gets so overwhelming. And next thing you know, I'm kicking in that stream next to you, trying to keep my head above water. It's just not working out. And I always got to go back to the basics and go, this is what I'm good at. This is where I'm going to stay. Right. And I'm not putting walls around myself, but I mean, that's your foundation and building blocks for everything else. Right. So, I've learned that, another part of my practice is definitely just trying to focus on that, those core things, because we all know we live in this world, man, where it's like, the minute you're talking and somebody says something, I go, "Ooh, butterfly," and I go somewhere else. And you know what I mean? And it's just like you get mixed up in the whirlwind of that stuff. But the question is for you, I'd like to know, with all the stuff that you're talking about and bringing to the forefront of fear and greatness and what have you, how would you translate this to, now I'm interviewing you, how would you translate this to what's behind us, meaning this next generation and where they're coming in, and how do we instill into them what we're trying to figure out and learn? Because from what I'm gathering, that group seems to be a ball of depressed, anxious kids that feel entitled.
Well, that's the big thing, and we do it. We create the entire entitlement as adults, because they wouldn't be entitled if we didn't give it to them. For me, and I can only speak to my two kids, and I've actually had an opportunity to start working with a coaching group that focuses on teens and young adults. And because if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself? That's my role, I feel, now with my kids, and then these other young people that I'm able to coach, is tell them some of the things that I wish I would have done differently. And so with my kids specifically, is I try to be very open and honest with them on all of my shortcomings that I struggled with. And I know they're going to make mistakes. I know that they have to have the process of learning. I just want them to avoid some of the big mistakes that I made. And the only way I can do that is to swallow my pride and let them know that their dad's not perfect. And that's been my main goal all throughout, is to try to remember how it was to be 14, not having the bombardment of things that they're being bombarded with every single second of the day.
Totally different than when we were,
which we didn't have, but every generation has had their challenges. Like our parents are like, well, I didn't have to deal with what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
I think it's gone light speed from that generation to our kids' generation, is that just with technology, it's light speed different. And I feel like it's being honest, teaching them discipline, and not that everything's just easy, going old school on them to some extent, of that you can't give them everything. As much as I just don't want them to have to work for anything, it does them absolutely no good.
Yeah.
And surrounding them with good mentors other than myself that have the same ideas about hard work. They're going to have different theories of how to accomplish that. What does that look like? I just want them to have their eyes open as they go into things and to question. Because I was telling somebody the other day, I never remember questioning my dad if he told me to go do something, pushing back. And he never laid a hand on me, never spoke, terrible to me, anything. I just had this respect at birth to not say anything. And it might have been my mom's programming. But overall, there's times that I get frustrated, but I'm glad that he's questioning a lot of that stuff, because I think goes back to what you said earlier, is we can't just take everything at face value.
Yeah.
Because I might not be right. And if I'm telling him to do something and I'm not willing to be corrected, then what lesson does that teach him? That's that generational thing that we have to break.
I agree with that. I think the other part that I would add into that is I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to tell my kids to do something that I would never do. Meaning, like, I'm not going to say, this is like really hard. Sometimes it's really hard for me at times to like sit down and focus on certain things, because, in that practice of just being with yourself and so on and so forth. So I read, but sometimes sitting down and actually reading and getting into like a book, especially if it's not of interest, it can be challenging for me. So I'm not going to tell my kids to sit down and do that. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, there's just certain things that I just, I don't want to, do as I say and as I do, and that whole thing just doesn't exist for me, as far as teaching them, because I feel like it's a lesson for them. If I'm going to tell you, get your butt up at 4:30 and start cooking the bacon, I'm going to beat you to it. I'm going to be up at 4. You know what I mean? I've always been that type of person, as far as how I try to instill that. But I was interested in hearing, because it's kind of funny that at our age and our generation, we go through what we go through and we're still trying to figure out, what's our greatness, or how we get to our peace, or whatever it is that we're searching for. Like, you also got to think, like, what are we also teaching these kids that are coming behind us? Because as we get older, and my man, as we sit in diapers, they're going to be taking care of us. I'm kidding. I'm not sitting in diapers. You forget about it. It's not going to happen. But you got to think about that too as well. How do we set that tone, and how do we explain to them how they find theirs? Is also something that I worry about a lot.
Yeah, well, there was and I don't know if somebody shared it on Instagram, and I'm not sure, you've probably seen it. It's a clip of a young man crying because he was having to work more than 12 hours at Starbucks and needed a union.
I think I posted it.
I think it was you as well.
I posted it.
That makes me furious.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's a failure of our generation with the next generation, that's even acceptable, that he's so entitled to that it's like, dude, you're a barista. I mean, you're not ripping shingles off of a roof.
You're not digging dishes.
And you're not doing, some of these other things, and that's what you think. And we won't go off on the whole political thing, because I think we're alignment in that. It's been probably 50 years in the making of this programming of just, no, you don't have to work hard. We'll just give you everything.
Well, this will scare you a little bit. So a friend of mine who's very highly decorated in the military, we grew up together, and I actually talked to him today. We hadn't caught up in a while, so I called him to wish him a Merry Christmas. And we got into the conversation of, he goes, man, it's just crazy around here. He's in the office. He used to be, traveled. He used to be a pilot, stationed all over the world and all that stuff. And now he's just pushing pay. He's at that age, right? He goes, thank God that I have an in-between team that can communicate between me and these Gen Zers that are coming in, right? I said, what do you mean? He goes, listen, it's a whole different military than when I enlisted, right? He goes, if we treat any of these new incoming generation, if we even try to treat them in any kind of military-ish kind of way, they freak out and they talk about how it's not good for their mind, and how their sense of their mental health is really thrown off by it, right? Staff sergeant comes up to you and starts screaming at you. That's not good for my mental health. And then the whole thing is like, do you think our enemies care about our mental health? Do you think our enemies care if you got to work? You know what I mean? So it's scary to think that this is like, it's not like a unanimous thing going around, that these, I mean, you know, we need to be a little bit more conscious of how we try to program these kids as we find these things and these pathways that work for us. Show it to your kids. It's also important. I think that just allows us to all be great. And I think that's a path for like overall greatness, if you were to ask me. How I talk about the cold, like my kid's getting that cold. I don't give a what, right? You're getting in. I don't want to. That's even more reason why you need to get in. You know what I mean? And then after they get, oh, daddy, I love it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, but you're getting in. It's going to happen. You know what I mean? You got to do some hard stuff, man. You gotta get, gotta get kicked in the shins, got something, man. You got to develop that. You got to learn what that feels like, because that's what, as we come here, and it's going back to my spiritual thing, like this experience that we're having, right? You and I sitting on here, this experience of life that we're having, right? There's a lot that goes with it. And most of us just want to obviously flow over to the good. We want a nice life, right? We want to feel good, right? All the time. Like we just had a deep freeze here in Georgia, right? Heaven forbid that your furnace went out, you freak out, because ours did. Got frozen. I was, my wife wasn't too happy. I was happy with it, because you get in your discomfort, man. That shit, excuse me, that's real. You know what I mean? Getting in your discomfort is needed, because you learn a lot about yourself and you learn how to adapt. That's what we, as human beings, that's what we do. We adapt. Look what we've adapted to. We've adapted to getting on Zoom, right? Sitting down every day. This is what, 30 years ago, that's what, 40 years, 100 years ago, we weren't doing that, So if you can learn how to adapt in that discomfort, it teaches you a lot, and it helps you be a little bit more resilient. That's what we need to teach kids.
I would, yes, we are on 100% on the same page. And when you were talking about your furnace going out, this will be the Christmas that everybody remembers, not when it was 70 degrees in the house and everything was fine.
It was great. Yes.
This Christmas, and what did we do? Well, we had to huddle up on the couch together as a family and get under blankets and watch movies.
Why do we do that?
Bad about that?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, to reiterate to the listeners, is teach people around you the value in doing hard things. And it doesn't have to mean 100-mile race.
No,
it could mean sitting on a bench for 45 minutes and just look at a fountain, or just do something that's challenging to you, that will make you better. And think of what Mike said earlier, is imagine your brain on the other side of the pain, not in front of it, and you'll be able to get through anything.
100%. I mean, it's simple. It's a simple formula that I feel like if you apply it, and as long as you're not that other side, what I'm saying, the other side, don't mistake at times that the other side is, I'm gonna feel glorious. It's just the other side of that moment right there. Like, this isn't gonna last long, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Especially at the time. I mean, you can do anything for 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. Anything. I mean, going back to Jesse, I never forget. He told me this. You want to talk about something to shut me up, right? I remember we were at his house in Connecticut, and we were doing this hill thing, going back up and down. And I got into a mode where I just started complaining. And he said to me, I can't remember, might have been Connecticut, might have been here in Atlanta, but he said, well, imagine a person that has cancer right now. Shut my mouth. Right? I was like, you're right. What I'm feeling is temporary right now, put in perspective, right? But even that, yes, the cancer patient that suffers a little bit longer, but even that's still temporary, and if you can get on the other side of that in between, it's going to be a lot easier to swallow, and that's where you learn, and that's where you grow, in that in between of that pain. That's where the growth really happens. Look at everything around you in life, man. Nothing you didn't come into this world easy. That's why they call it hard labor. You know, it wasn't easy. Boom, but you're here and it's great. And it only hurt for a little bit. But it hurt your mom for a little bit. You know, it could have hurt you. You don't even remember it. So that's what I'm saying, man. Like, it's just, you know, enjoy that hard part because you learn a lot there. And it's, you know, that's if you really want to be like, I always hear you're not the sum of your past experiences. Well, I want to be the sum of my past experiences because I want to make sure that those experiences are great experiences, whether good or bad. You know what I mean? It's who I am, you know. But it's not like I don't, whether it was good or bad, I don't let it hold me down. There's always a, you know, push to move forward. You know, I just try to have that, man. Just you gotta have that in order to be great. Just that push, you know, to want to take on life because that's what it's here for. You're supposed to feel it. That's why you have senses and all that stuff. You're supposed to feel it and enjoy it. This reality world that we live in, the Oculus that we're wearing, right? You're supposed to feel and grab and all that stuff. That's what it's all about. So enjoy it while you're here because it's not going to be much longer.
That's right.
No, it's true. And I don't mean that. I mean, listen, 100
Yeah.
years, 125 years, that's not a long time, right?
Nope.
You know? So you got to enjoy it, man. And because and who knows what happens next, right? Like at the end of the day, like, do we go somewhere else or do we look over or is it another repeat? We just start all over again. Who knows, right? But while you're here, while you know what's going on, you know, and you have this experience, like enjoy it and create whatever you want from it because it is your domain to create, you know?
Mike, man, thank you.
You're welcome, brother.
What an unbelievable conversation. I appreciate it. Now, how can I support you?
You just, you know, I don't know, man. Like you come over, cold plunge with me. You can come over and you come over, have a meal with me, right? And we can spread the word on how these kids and how we need to be great. That's really what it is, man. That's what I need. I need to be part of your squad. You need to be a part of my squad to just make this world a better place because Jeff, you know, the stuff that we're seeing right now is, you know, it makes you like, what's going on? You know what I mean? And I think the support comes in where it's like, you call me and I call you. And it's like, are we on this? Like, because a lot of times we don't realize that we're on the same page. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And we don't realize that we have that support factor of each other because, you know, maybe there's something going on, whatever it is, morally, politically, whatever. We get so isolated that I feel like I can't call you and you can't call me. And a lot of times when we do end up connecting, it's like, did you feel the same way? Holy smoke, I did. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of things that happened during this pandemic, a lot of things that I thought that ostracized me from everybody else, right? And until I found out that you got this, you know, the way that you get there, you get that support network in place where you like, man, am I crazy? And like, nah, bro, we're thinking the same thing. Good. That it's not me. I'm not nutty. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's the best support we could give each other. If I were to answer that question, I mean, it's very generic. I'm not, you know, self-centered. So this is what I need and follow me on this and, you know, and spread the word that my name is really not Bruce.
I'll do my best.
So, but no, that's it, man. I really appreciate what you did. And I really appreciate you inviting me on the second time. By the way, so everybody knows, I missed the last time because my time zones on my calendars were thrown off. And my wife was like, don't you have a podcast? I was like, it's not till 8:00 tonight. I'm good. It's only 4:00. Just like text me already, like, are you getting on? I was like,
it happens. It happens. This was well worth the wait, my friend. I appreciate it.
Happy New Year to you, 2023, man. Let's do it all over again. Make it great. Again.
Sounds good. And then I'll let you know because we'll be up in Atlanta at the end of March for my daughter's volleyball tournament. I got it here ready for you, brother. It's just a quick stop, dip you in, and then get you on your way. You'll feel like $1 million. Nope, that sounds good. All right. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you. It's fun, bro. Yep.